and the humanist theory. Next slide, sir. So with this, we come to the behaviorist theory. This was originally described by Skinner in the late 20th century. And it predominantly works on the principle of positive or negative reinforcements that is provided by the instructor. So therefore, we can say that behaviors are influenced and learned from external forces rather than internal forces. So there's a stimulus which is provided by the instructor, the learner responds, and of course, there is positive or negative reinforcement. Next slide, sir. So what are the classroom implications? In this particular model, the role of the teacher is pivotal. They're in total control of the educational experience. And they dictate terms, whether something is right or there's something wrong. But there is very little opportunity for learner reflection. And of course, this is an example of a pedagogical approach. Next slide, sir. So if we're reading this behaviorist theory, what is the advantage? A strength of this approach is the emphasis on the mastery of the prerequisite steps, that is the basic steps, the foundation steps. And on these, there are more complex topics which students build upon. And of course, this concept was taken up by Bloom, and he gave a Bloom's taxonomy, which we will be later touching in this particular session. And here the learners are just, they're considered as a blank slate. They don't have any prior experience to learning. So they just start from the very beginning. Next slide, sir. A weakness of such an approach, however, is a cognitive overload. Now, when we're talking about a cognitive overload, we should, ask ourselves as to what this cognitive overload is. So this was first described by Sweller, and he said that there is a limited working memory which is available to process into a long-term memory. And if you're overloading this cognitive ability, then there is a risk of lower learner engagement. The student may not just pay attention. And of course, there is some reduced motivational impact. There's less of motivation, and maybe the student will not like to learn at all. Next slide, sir, please. So with this, we come to the approach to how you will be teaching and assessing in this kind of kid. So there are didactic sessions which will involve lectures to mass audiences, and there may be tutor-led tutorials. And the assessment would mainly will mainly be of MCQs. Maybe you can do just a negative marking for the negative reinforcement, and this is what the behaviorist theory is all about. Next slide, sir. With this, we come to cognitivism. I hope I'm not going too fast. You can just stop me at any time if you want to. So with this, we go on to cognitivism. And this theory was developed in the early 1900s, and it was taken up from the Gestalt psychology. It was developed by the scientist Kohler. And it mainly focuses on the processes that are involved. That is, you are integrating new information into that pre-existing knowledge that you already have. So it is actually involving acquiring, storing, and retrieving information. Next slide, sir. So we've already studied one behaviorist theory. How is it different from this behaviorist theory? So in contrast with the behaviorist theory, thinking was regarded as a behavior, but in the cognitive approach, thinking is separate, and that is impacting the behavior. And besides these above statements, behaviorism is also teacher centric, whereas cognitism is more of learner centric part. And in behaviorist theory, the teacher is playing a pivotal role, whereas the teacher in the cognitivist theory is becoming a facilitator. Next slide. So the classroom implications would see that the role of a teacher here is to facilitate, and he teaches a learner how to learn. So this is the approach of a learner-centric theory. And of course, it is going to be an andragogical approach, which is adult learning. Next slide, sir. So in this, we can use like videos and PowerPoint presentations. And what is the advantage? There is, whenever there is a need to process or retrieve any kind of information or apply new knowledge, this theory will be most applicable. And if it is for exercises which are involving some reflective kind of thinking or some problem solving, then of course a cognitive approach would be best. Next slide, sir. The disadvantage, again, in this particular theory, because you cannot directly observe reflective thinking or problem solving approach. So it cannot be directly observed or it cannot be directly measured. And there is another disadvantage that it is reliant on the working memory, and that may decline with advancing age. Now, you may just stop me here and say, why is it declining with advancing age? And there's so many young people who are with a poor memory, and there's so many aged people who have a terrific memory. So again, it's just a general view. Next slide, sir. I hope I'm not very quickly moving on to the constructivist theory. If there are any questions here for behaviorism and cognitivism, I would be most happy to answer them. All right, so we move on to the constructivist theory. And this was detailed or given by Paget in 1953 and Brunner again in 1966. They described the construction of understanding and knowledge through experiencing phenomena, and then you're reflecting back upon them. And the principle here is that learners will compare new information and experiences with their prior held beliefs. Next slide, sir. Now, the classroom implications are that, as with cognitivism, constructivism also has an andragogical approach. And because there is exploration and inquiry element into it, it will also form a basic concept. We just studied that, there are three. There's pedagogy, there's andragogy, and there's heutagogy, which is learner-led. So since there is exploration and inquiry element into it, it forms the basic concept of heutagogy. And the implication is that, you cannot separate constructivism and behaviorism. They're not two separate entities, but it's just simply an amalgamation. If you just take a look at this flow chart here, there is some concrete experience where you're doing something and you're having experience. And then you go on to the reflective observation where you are reviewing and reflecting on that particular experience that you got. And then you go on to the abstract conceptualization where you're concluding and you're learning from that experience. And then, of course, that is leading to active experimentation where you're planning and you're trying out what you've learned. And that in turn, again, leads to concrete experience. Next slide, sir. So the advantage of such an approach is that it can just promote self-confidence. It guides the learner to discover the knowledge on their own. Next slide, sir. And as you know, we've always been talking, there's a crunch of time, there is always a pressure on the teaching time that is available to the facilitator. The next slide, sir. Then there was another theory that came up. I would just like to mention that the behaviorist theory, the cognitive approach, then the constructivist theory, they're all classroom based. There was another theory that came up, and this was given by Vygotsky. That was the social constructivist theory. There was an overlap between constructivism and cognitivism, and he called that as social constructivism. And this describes as to how learners build upon a platform of experience, and in order to introduce some new concepts or understand them, the new concepts that have come up from the constructivism theory and the cognitivism theory. Next slide. Then, of course, we've just discussed that behaviorism, cognitism, constructivism, they're all primary classroom teachings, teaching and learning theories. So in this era, post-COVID era, the internet has taken all the students and teaching by storm. And there is internet, there's social media, there are blogs, the online discussion forums, which are all contributing to the education. And thus, the education theory has just radically changed. So learning can no longer be regarded as just an individual trait here, because there are networks available, there are resources, there are opportunities. And previously, they were just kind of unimaginable. And this has led to the development of the connectivist theory, which was given by Townsend Siemens. Next slide, sir. Now, in contrast to all the above theories that we've just mentioned, there is this humanist approach also, which regards learning as a personal act to achieve fulfillment. Now, this was developed in response to limitations of behaviorism, and also because there were learners who progressed towards self-actualization, and there was creativity. So Abraham Harold Maslow, he was an American psychologist, and he's best known for creating this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you just see at the bottom of this green colored pyramid here, the bottom of this pyramid, there are physiological needs. There's at the lowest level of hierarchy. You need water, you need warmth, you need rest. Then come the safety needs, where you need security and safety. Then the belonging needs. You need love, you need intimate relationships and friends. Then esteem needs. At this particular stage, maybe you just need prestige and a feeling of accomplishment. I've achieved this, I've achieved that. And then comes the realizing of a personal potential, that is self-actualization. And at the top of the pyramid is a sense of meaning and purpose, the self-transcendence. Next slide, sir. So these are a few of references that I have considered for all the texts that I've taken. The images have been, some of them have been taken from Google also, and the rest from these two papers. So just to break the monotony a little, we'll just play a small little game of flashcards. Can we go on to the flashcards, sir?
But before that, Sonia, we can just ask if there are any questions.
If there are any questions, yes.
Yeah.
Madam Sonia, are those flashcards the questions which you had sent in text, is it?
No, sir. The flashcard will play in the PPT itself.
Okay. In the same PPT?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's embedded in the PPT. So, are there any questions?
We would want all of you to please, open up, talk, ask questions, because otherwise this is going to be just a one-way show. And I always feel that unless you have a question, I'm
Can I
always
have a
wondering.
question, please, Dr. Suchita?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Dr. Habib from Iraq.
Yes, Dr.
Do you hear me, please? Do you hear me clearly?
Yes, we hear you clearly.
Yes. Just my question is about what we mean by social constructivist theory. What does social mean in this context?
In this context,
Okay.
social means where you are, you're building community of practice. You are with people and taking in all the the vibes from people, the learnings from people. You construct your own learning. So it is. It has. From behaviorism, from constructivism, this is one part of like a constructivism theory, but here you have the feelings very much like Maslow's hierarchy, which will come in. So that how learning will occur, it cannot. Remember one thing: learning can never occur standalone. It is always built from your experiences with people, of people, by people. So there is a lot of social interaction that is involved, and that is what will help learning to occur. And that is the reason why you must have noticed that when Sonia spoke, we sort of built it slowly, and then finally we came down to Maslow's hierarchy, where which emphasizes this kind of a social constructivism. Am I clear? Yeah, Sonia, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to add that, see, here we are interacting with each other. We are learning from each other. And this is also a kind of a social constructivist theory where you already have some prior experience to teaching and learning in your college. You're a professor, you're a doctor, and you're teaching your students. And here you have a joint certificate course to learn more. So you're building up on the information that you've already had with the people who are around you. Like, Sucheta ma'am just told you something, and I am like kind of, reading out this PPT, and I'm dispensing out information to you. So again, this is a part of this social constructivist theory. You're building on to information that you already have.
Sonia, am I allowed to say a word or two, Dr. Shabi Zaidi?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of comments. Answer to Habib Shoaib's question about social constructivism. Remember, society has built up from ages. I mean, like even caveman had a concept of a society. So they used to live in small groups. So those small groups, they developed into communes. So they used to live in the caves, and they have certain principles that they had to follow. Those communities then developed into interactive actions with neighboring communities. And when they had this arrangement with the neighboring communes, which still exists in small villages and developing countries in particular, also in developed countries, those communes then developed an understanding based on certain guiding rules and principles, which are ethical and moral and what have you. But that contract that you develop, the understanding that you develop, is based on the understanding that you respect and honor the dignity of other people. Social constructivism is basically a form of social contract. And in much later days, in the later part of last century, there was a philosopher who came and blessed this world with a new concept, which is called the social contract theory. His name was John Rawls, and I would encourage you to read about him, because this man gave the concept that the social contract is one basis on which you develop equality as well as equity. And I think I did mention in my last lecture, there is a difference between equality and equity. Equality is when you distribute everything to everybody, irrespective of their needs. Equity is when you provide somebody, you quench the thirst, or you provide the needed thing to the person who needs in a community. And that social contract develops into a fabric, which is a social constructivity theory. That's one thing. The second comment I'd like to mention is on Maslow's pyramid. Now, Maslow's pyramid has come up in the recent years, but I tell you, from ancient times, this concept has been there, that a child is born, a baby is born with the animal kingdom anywhere in the world. The first few things are, the first thing is thirst, hunger, etc. So the basic needs, physiological needs, as you mentioned. Then, of course, you have curiosity, then security, then curiosity, then companionship. Maslow has added these things much later, after 1945. And this concept, I'm telling you, has been there for hundreds of years in ancient literature. It's available. What is interesting is that when he talks about develop into what's called personal transcendence, that is where he takes into a world of philosophy of what's called motion of life and motion of soul. And I would encourage you to read Mullah Sadra, a great philosopher of Iran, who has taken this to a different height when he talks about the motion of life, that the life is in motion and you're trying to transcend, your soul is trying to transcend into different spheres altogether. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It was beautifully explained. Thank you, sir. So, any other questions from the participants?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I'm Dr. Shazia from Pakistan. Ma'am, I want to ask one question that I understand. If I'm wrong, please let me correct. In this theory, being learner, we learn from the members of other field in our social setup, or we have already have some knowledge in our specific field, and we build on some more information, more knowledge upon our previous knowledge.
It's a bit of both. We learn from other people, and also we learn from whatever we already know. These are the schema that they talk about, and so we build on the schemas and layer it. So that is the reason why whenever we take a class also, for example, we need to know what is the background knowledge of our students, and then slowly we build on that knowledge. And so you're right, it is a little bit of both, and that is why no theory is complete on its own. It is a sum total of all the theories which are included to sort of try and explain how people learn. So actually, it's a conundrum. It's still people are debating what is the actual way in which people learn, because it is all these theories are involved. So no theory is right or wrong. It is all a sum total of all these theories which are involved. I hope that answers your question. Yes.
Dr. Ishaq from Pakistan. Ma'am, my question is, kindly share the slides when there is a relevant question regarding any slide. Can you please share or show the same slides so that we have idea what the question is and how we can answer them?
Okay. All right. We'll do that. Thank you for the suggestion. I think, Sonia, we can you can show the flashcards now.
All right. Bashir sir, if we could just play the flashcards now, can just see all these questions will pop up in white and the answers will come up in yellow. So you can just try and answer them. So this is just an example. So can we play it again? So can we go back to the flashcards? So there is a play mode, which is, so there's a play button. Yes, sir. Right. So behaviors are influenced and learned from the external forces rather than internal forces. So these are the answers. So what is the example of teaching method in behaviorism theory? Any answers? Yes, it could be lecture or
practical session.
all right, tutorials, very good.
Practicals.
Practicals.
Shalmai practicals. Mentorship. Azam has said mentorship.
In some forms.
Hi.
Sunita says demonstration.
Demonstration. Transaction.
Small group.
MCQs.
As a nurse, behavior or practice is a very important.
It's the very definition of learning is change in behavior. Yeah, true. So these are, tools that you can use in your classrooms. I often use these tools for recapitulation. When I'm teaching my students, it just kind of breaks the monotony a little, and it gives the students a break from the didactic lecture that is going on, and it just kind of makes them happier. So these you can use these flashcards whenever you're teaching in your classroom. So can we go on to the next slide, sir? So we come to the next section of this particular session, and these are the domains of learning. Now, so the next slide. Bloom et al., they're well known for dividing categories of learning into the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. Now, cognitive is mainly concerned with mental skills, that is the knowledge part. The affective domain here in orange, this is actually about growth in feelings of emotional areas. So it's all about attitudes. And the psychomotor part, where, it's mainly about manual or physical skills. So when you're assessing a student, you will assess the skill part. Next slide, sir. So in the cognitive domain, the simulation required is that learners will apply their cognitive skill. In the psychomotor domain, it's more of actions, and a refined psychomotor is required. So that is how you will assess. And when you're talking about the affective domain, you're mainly concerned about the feelings, the experience, the questions, and the concerns. Next slide, sir. I'll just like to talk in detail about the cognitive domain. And this starts with a simple concept, and then the cognitive function goes on to more complex behaviors, or the learning goes on to the more complex topics. So this is from the lower order thinking and just goes on to the higher order thinking. And this has certain elements to it. The first here at the bottom is the knowledge. Now, knowledge is the ability of the learner to recall data or information. And what is comprehension? This is actually the ability of the learner to understand the meaning of what is known. Then application. This is the ability of the student to use abstract knowledge in a new situation. And then comes the analysis part, where you've started differentiating facts and opinions. Then you go on to the synthesis part, where you are integrating certain elements and concepts in order to form a sound pattern or maybe a structure to establish a new meaning. And then comes the evaluation part, where there is an ability to come up with judgments about certain concepts. So this starts with the lower order thinking and goes on to the higher order thinking. So cognitive domain is all about knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Knowledge, that's just recalling data. Comprehension is understanding. Application is using abstract knowledge in new situations. Analysis, differentiating facts and opinions. Synthesis is integration of certain elements to establish a new meaning. And evaluation is simply judgment or your assessment. Next slide, sir. So with this, we come to the psychomotor domain. This again has a few elements to it.
Sonia, if I can just intervene here for a
Yes,
minute.
ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Just go back to your, the
cognitive domain.
Cognitive, yeah. Or we must realize here that this same aspect, when we teach, we are moving, when we are teaching the students or whatever, we are moving, when we ask or when we teach them in a certain way, we have to ensure that ultimately they reach this level of complexity where they are able to evaluate things and or they are able to synthesize. And so our assessment also will be dependent on this movement of the cognitive function from simple to complex. So that is the reason why when you teach in such a way that you make students think and try and analyze, apply and synthesize instead of just recall. And then your assessment will also be dependent on this aspect. Is this clear? I hope I am sort of emphasizing this aspect, and that is the reason why when we do the module on assessment, you will understand that that our assessments have to be more and more moving towards making students synthesize and evaluate than to just recall. And that is why when someone mentioned MCQs, when the MCQs that we set also, we should not be just recall. The MCQs or any question that we ask should help the students to synthesize and evaluate. Yeah, thank you. So over to you, Sonia. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. So in the psychomotor domain, again, it has lots of elements to it. There are 5 elements to it, and they are perception, set, guided response, mechanism, complex overt response, adaptation, and origination. We must see what perception is all about. This is actually the ability to apply the sensory information to motor activity. Just an example is that when you're practicing a series of test papers and you've practiced enough, you get high marks in the assessment. So that is what perception is all about. So you are applying your sensory information to motor activity. You're writing, reading, and writing something. Then comes set. This is readiness to act. You need, this is one of the principles of learning, that you need to be ready to accept what is being given. So that is readiness to act. Then there is guided response, where there is an ability to imitate the displayed behavior, or you're using a method of trial and error. So that becomes a guided response. And again, an example is that in college or maybe in school, you must have had some favorite favorite teachers who have been teaching you. And now when you are a teacher, you try and imitate what they used to do. For example, one of my teachers was very good at making flow charts and diagrams. I use maximum flow charts and diagrams just because I was in so much awe of that teacher. So that was a guided response. And then there is mechanism, that is the ability to convert learned responses to habitual actions, and that comes with proficiency and confidence. So if whatever things that you've learned, you're now converting it into a response. Then comes the complex overt response, which is the ability to skillfully perform complex patterns. You're able to do things more efficiently. And then comes the adaptation part, where there is an ability to modify learned skills to meet some special events. For example, there's a designer who has designed clothes, and now he has, because he's learned so much, he has the ability to modify it into a good clothing for the event. And then comes the origination part, where you're creating something new for a specific situation. So this is all about the psychomotor domain. I'll just repeat once more. There is perception, there is set, there is guided response, there is mechanism, there is complex overt response, adaptation, and origination, where perception was the ability to apply sensory information to motor activity. Set is readiness to act. Guided response is imitation. Mechanism is to convert learned responses into habitual actions. It just becomes a habit. It becomes a second nature. And then complex overt response to skillfully perform that action. And adaptation is to modify the learned skills, and origination when you're creating something new. Maybe go on to the next slide, sir. Then is the affective domain. All these flow charts have been taken, or these pyramids have been taken from the Taxonomy of Education Objectives Handbook 2. And the affective domain says that, again, it has a few elements to it. It has the receiving phenomena, the responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing phenomena to it. So receiving is, you're simply dispensing out information to your students, and they're listening or they're reading it from their books. So that is receiving. Then responding is about inquiry, and then response. So that is, again, the active mode of learning, whereas receiving was passive mode of learning. Then valuing is when you're attaching importance to something, whatever information that is being given to you, you're attaching importance to that information. And then you are accepting different viewpoints. You're comparing and you're relating it with the other values. That is called organizing. And when you've internalized all that into your belief system, that is called characterizing. So again, I'm just repeating once more for your benefit. It is receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. Receiving is listening and reading. Responding is inquiry and response. Valuing is attaching importance. Organizing is accepting different viewpoints. And characterizing is internalizing those beliefs. Next slide, sir. There are plenty of other models that I have not included in my PowerPoint presentation, but I would advise you to read them up. There are other models that are worth mentioning, and that was given by Dave in 1975. That was another taxonomy for psychomotor domain. And there was another one which I found readable, was Harrow's taxonomy, that was given in 1972. What we have here is the Sonmises model. And apart from the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain, he also included the intuitive domain, which is recognizing, discrimination, then there's insight born, retention under control, the future past relationship building. All these come under the intuitive domain. And he says that there are 5 elements to each domain, and the 6th always is evaluation. But he also mentions that you can evaluate each element of every domain. For example, he says that you can evaluate knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, and synthesis. So this was Sonia's model. Of course, all these, as Sucheta ma'am had already mentioned, that it's not something that's perfect. It can be tweaked all the time, and maybe you could come up someday with another model of learning. So with this, we come to the end of section 2. I have a few references on the next slide, sir. So I have taken all the text from these 2 papers by Bloom and Anderson, and it's worth a read because they're beautifully written. And Zaidi sir, if you could just chip in a little and add a little insight to what I've already said, I would be very grateful.
I think you've covered all of it. I will, towards the end, probably talk briefly about pedagogy and andragogy comparative study, and perhaps add a word or two on technogogy. But I will leave it to you for the time being, and then Sucheta has to cover a few more things. I've also sent a message to Dr. Arab Shahi. He should be there shortly. He had a very important meeting going on in the institution, but I've received a message from Sholay that he will be joining shortly. So in the meantime, over to Sucheta.
And also remember that this is the big triangle. Everywhere, whatever we've been talking about, we will see that medical education, we have or health professions education, we have so many involvement of these triangles, and we have here in this case, this is an example of knowledge, skills, and attitude. So the affective domain is the attitude that people have. So it's a culmination. Whatever teaching learning occurs is a culmination of all the 3. So with that,
I think there was a question. There was a question about intuitive domain. Can you explain, Sonia, Sucheta?
Can you just go back to the slide then? I think there was a suggestion that we look at the slides and.
Yeah.
Oh, no. The other one.
The next slide.
Intuitive. It's a tongue twister.
Yes, it is a tongue twister. So in this, they say you're recognizing certain situations, and sometimes you kind of go by your gut feeling. This is not right. This is not. Or maybe this is wrong, or so that is, recognizing certain situations. Then you're able to discriminate what is right, what is wrong. You're going by your gut feeling. This is what intuitive means. And then inside born is actually, when you have started realizing yourself. And here I would like to mention the Maslow's triangle, where at the peak, it just mentions that now you've achieved transcendence. And so that is the time when you're born inside, you've realized your full potential. And
you can show Maslow's slide again. Dr. Mubashir, if you can just go back and we can show them the Maslow's. Yes, Sonia, you can keep talking.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the time when you're, born, and then comes.
Yeah, this is what she was meaning.
Yeah, this is it just shows that this is the peak where there is a meaning and purpose, and then of course after that comes retention under control. Whatever you've learned, you start taking pride in. I have achieved a sense of purpose, and there's a lot of pride that comes in. So this is the time when you need to be, you need to practice self-control. All right, I have achieved so much. Now I have this sense of purpose within me. So this is, the time when I need to control all that I have, and I need to now go on to the other people and connect with other people and just rub it off onto the others. So, and then of course, then there's this future past relationship building. There are times when, you are not very happy with someone, and but there are a few things that you've learned from that person. So you can just, go back to that relationship, and now you trust that person and say, okay, I've learned this thing from you. And, maybe you just build on the information that you have. And this is perhaps the future past relationship building. And maybe, in future, uh, the the good or the bad things that you've shared will probably now be better. So this is again the future past relationship building. And of course, you can evaluate things and how you're going to do it, sir. I have absolutely no idea how you're going to evaluate the intuitive domain. I have absolutely no idea, because I feel, that's something that's from within, and no one can evaluate your intuition or your recognition or the discrimination. That cannot be done. I don't know.
So
I have
there is
absolutely no idea about that.
another very good question is that how do you correlate the learning domains to applied sciences like professionalism and clinical competence? Very good question.
Yes.
Anyone
Yes,
from
indeed.
the audience, from the teachers, anybody? It's a very practical thing, because all this theory that you're learning has to be applied. Otherwise, you become a nerd.
Again, yes, sir, I do agree that this is a very, very good question. And this question says, how can we relate clinical competence to learning domains?
Clinical
So-
competence is very simple to relate it to, because knowledge, the skills, and the attitude, all three have to come in together as far as honing of clinical competence is concerned. And it's a sum total of everything, and along with that, professionalism and ethics is also involved. So it's actually, moving from the triangle to a quadrant.
That's right, ma'am. So,
And this question on, I would like to just say my small bit on professionalism and what was the question? Let me just read it again.
how can we relate clinical competence to the learning domains?
No, how can we relate learning domains to professionalism? First of all, let us think of the definition of professionalism. What is it? It is a way in which we can carry out work which requires expertise and which is justified by accountability, isn't it? So it has to be what is professionalism and what are the criteria of professionalism you will have to think of, and then relate it to the domains. And here, when it comes to the themes, I think you would have accountability, altruism, reflection, and what else comes to my mind? Self responsibility, ethics and professionalism both together. Yes, thank you, Nima, for that. Trustworthiness is also a part of professionalism. So when you have to relate it, it means, first of all, understanding these themes. That means the cognition of it, the knowledge of what is involved in professionalism. Once you have got that knowledge, how you will apply it and actually put it into action. That is the psychomotor part of it. That is the domains of professionalism. How will you put it across? And the third part would be how will you internalize it and in a way show, in inverted commas, show it to the public at large, to your patients at large, to your students. the professional behavior. You know, when you say that this person is most unprofessional in behavior, what do you mean by that? How have you defined it, and how have you decided it is because of the actions, isn't it? And that is what leads us to all these aspects. So I hope Badri, right? We have answered your question.
Yes, Sucheta, can I add just one thing?
Yes, of course,
Like,
please,
yeah,
Neema.
if you look at the this thing article by Stone in 2006, you will realize that the foundation of professionalism is the clinical competence, knowledge of medicine. And then you can't have everything. You may be accountable, feel you are accountable, you feel you are following ethics, you have that altruism as an attribute, but and communication skills also. But if you don't have the clinical competence, then everything is futile. So that remember, the foundation is laid by the clinical competence for professionalism.
Yes. So you know, you cannot ignore the three domains and relating to them to professionalism also. Anything else you want to add, Neema?
No.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that input. So
with this, we move on to
if there are no more questions, if there is no more discussion, is there anyone who would like to say? I'm just looking at the questions here. Can you explain? Can we relate domains? We used to separate knowledge from cognition in the learning, in this classification. Cognition, affection, and psychomotor is knowledge. Here is part of cognition domain. Yes. Okay, so I think we've answered everything in the chat. Thank you for this great interaction. Please keep on adding your comments in the chat, and we will take them up. And if we'll be also very frank, if at all there is some aspect that we cannot explain right now at the moment, then we will take it up at the next time. But thank you for all the comments. Yeah, most welcome.
Can I tell them something
Neema?
for the next one? If this is the end, or there is something after?
No. She has the flashcards, and then she has the blooms also.
Okay. So at the end,
and then we have 1 more hour, no, to go.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll definitely call you for the instructions.
So we shall now play flashcards just for a little bit of recapitulation. So can you play the play button? Yes. So the cognitive domain aims to develop and fill in the blank.
Knowledge.
Okay. So it's the mental skills and the acquisition of knowledge of the individual. Very good.
Nice.
The cognitive domain encompasses 6 categories, which include
knowledge comprehension.
Very nice.
Analysis, synthesis, and evaluation.
Excellent. The categories of affective domain include
affective domain, receiving, responding, evaluating, organizing, and the last characteristic.
Excellent. The psychomotor domain includes utilizing motor skills and ... So you have the ability to coordinate them. So that is fine psychomotor domain. So this is the end of the
perception set, and guided response.
All right.
Yeah, and I think mechanisms. After that, complex overt response and adaptation. And next, last step is organization.
Yes, origination. Yes, excellent, excellent. You remember all of them. Kudos. With this, we move on to the Bloom's taxonomy and its applications. And this is the last section, last but very exciting and very important. So can we move on to the next slide, sir? So in the year 1956, there was Benjamin Bloom and his team of collaborators. They published the book on taxonomy of the educational objectives, and that framework soon became to be known as the Bloom's taxonomy. And this is providing or categorizing the educational goals. So we move on to the next slide, sir. There was another educationist, Krathwohl, who revised Bloom's taxonomy, and later it was known as the revised Bloom's taxonomy. And Krathwohl categorized, or he just changed the original format to certain levels of thinking. He said at the lower end of the pyramid is remember. That is the ability to recall or recognize information and ideas. Then understand, where understanding is the main idea of the material heard, viewed, or read. Interpreting or summarizing the ideas in your own words, that is understanding. Then applying or application, that is providing opportunities to use ideas, theories, or problem-solving techniques, and then applying them to new situations. Then analyze is examining concepts or ideas to break them down into basic parts. Then there is evaluation, where you're using certain standards and criteria to support opinions and views. And then there is create, where there is assembling parts of knowledge into a whole, and then you're using creative thinking and problem solving. So just a small recapitulation, there is remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create as the revised Bloom's taxonomy by Krathwohl. Next slide, sir. So how is this Bloom's taxonomy useful? It is useful for course or curriculum planning. Then you can set certain education goals or objectives. You create learning activities, and you create assessments or evaluations. The next slide, sir. Then, of course, we've already discussed that all these theories and all these domains, they are just open to interpretation. And the same goes with Bloom's taxonomy as well. So like with any theoretical construct, again, Bloom's taxonomy is open to all kinds of interpretation, and it does not precisely have to be followed. You can just, start with any order. For example, at the lower end is of the pyramid is remembering. So you might not, in your curriculum, you might not start with remembering. You might just kind of work your way up. Then another useful implication of this Bloom's taxonomy, so the next slide, is how you can write your learning outcomes. See, we have this pyramid here, which is the hierarchy of the cognitive domains, and mentions knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And just for recapitulation purpose, knowledge was remembering facts. So when you are writing your learning objectives, if you remember in the very first slide, I had mentioned that the topic for today was theories and domains of learning. And I had mentioned that the learning objectives for this particular session are to discuss the theories of learning, to discuss their implication in learning. So here I'm using certain verbs, and when I'm using the knowledge part, for example, if you have to formulate a learning objective for, say, what are the branches of the maxillary artery? And that is knowledge part where you just have to recall. So you can say that at the end of this session, the participant will be able to name the branches of the maxillary artery. So you can use certain verbs such as outline, describe, list, state, name. All these will go with knowledge. For comprehension, you can use verbs like clarify, contrast, differentiate, discuss, explain, illustrate. For application, you can use the verbs like apply, assess, calculate, demonstrate. And then for the analysis part, again, you can use analyze, appraise, differentiate, examine. For synthesis, you can use verbs such as create, design, generate, invent. And for the evaluation part, you can use appraise, conclude certain things, then evaluate and interpret. With this, we move on to the next slide.
And here, I would like to just chip in that when it comes to learning outcomes and the learning objectives, we need to understand the use of these verbs and the use of so that we can sort of raise the bar and not leave it at just the bottom of the pyramid, and that is why the verbs keep changing, and because and it will all depend on what kind of learning we need to get out of our students, and that is the reason why you need to use the right verbs at the right time, and that is what even when it comes to you making your own lesson plan and your own lecture, you need to set the objectives or the learning outcomes of even the lecture, and this is something that we would encourage all of you to keep on doing all the time, so that you have your outcomes and the objectives very clear in your minds.
One word for these verbs is action verb, isn't it? Action verb.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Action verbs.
It's important to remember the action verb is different to the verbs that normally we use in conversation. And there is a tabular chart, a list of all these action verbs which are available in the literature for those who may not be familiar with, though all the teachers are familiar, and I'm sure they know how to apply them. But the word is action verb. It has to be not just theoretical, but apply, do. The concept is to be practical, experiential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And in the last chat that I have seen, should we include all when we prepare an exam and do they weigh the same? I think Sucheta ma'am has very aptly, summed up everything. And I hope you've got the answer to this particular question. Abukar Elami, Dr. Abukar Elami. So are there any more questions for this section? All right, so now I wanted this picture to be a little nice, and because there are some students who are very technically sound, and I do remember Zaidi sir using the term technogogy in his very first lecture. And this picture so very aptly defines our working model these days. I forgot to make a backup of my brain, so everything I learned last semester was lost. So this very nicely sums up the technogogy part. Maybe move on to the next slide, sir. So Bloom's taxonomy is, it could be revisited many times, and it was revisited by Krathwohl in the year 2001, and now it is revisited as digital taxonomy. So here, now the verbs or the action verbs, as Zaidi sir had just told us, these action verbs have now changed. They're more technically sound now. So for remembering, the action verb could be networking, or social bookmarking, or local bookmarking, or searching. And then for the comprehension, the action verb could be blog journaling, or twittering, or tagging and commenting. So this is all very interesting nowadays. For the application part, where you're applying, the action verb could be uploading, sharing, editing. For the analyzing part, it could be integrating and media clipping or structuring. And then for the evaluation part, again, collaboration, networking. Then there's creating part where you can just broadcast everything. So there's broadcasting. So these are some technical terms that have been added in the year 2022. So this is taken from the paper Educational Inference Technology, and very relevant in today's times because of these online classes. And of course, we are here itself doing an online lecture. Maybe, are there any questions for this particular section? So there is updated Bloom's taxonomy, evaluate and create instead of synthesis and evaluate. Maybe go on to the previous slide, sir. There is a question from Nadar Al-Khatib. Maybe go on to the previous slide. Another one, sir. We go on to the Krathwohl's pyramid, or here. Yes, so I think, so the next slide. So here, Krathwohl, he replaced this knowledge with remember, and comprehension with understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. He tweaked it according to the educational goals. So I hope I've answered your question. Are there any other questions that are there for this section? All right, so thank you. Sir, can we now play the last flashcard of the section? So the original taxonomy featured 6 elements to it. They are so that you acquire mental skills, and it comes to knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So these are the 6 elements. So how is it useful? Bloom's taxonomy, how is it useful? Of course, for curriculum planning, for setting learning goals, for creating learning activities, and creating assessments or evaluation. So with this, we come to the end of this particular section. Thank you.